the north shall return, and shall set forth a multitude greater than the former.
In other words, the king of the north, remember, had just lost a multitude to the king of the south. Antiochus the Great, Antiochus III, whose surname was Magus, or the Great, had just lost a battle, or had just lost most of his host to the king of the south, which was Ptolemy IV, whose surname was, what does it say? Philopator, right? Philopator, Ptolemy IV. Go ahead.
And shall certainly come after certain years with a great army and with much riches.
In other words, he came a second time. You can see, we probably won't stay there as long, but I still want the brothers that's watching it to see that by this time, and here's the circumstance behind it. By this time, Ptolemy Philopator had died. It's this Ptolemy IV had died, and in a sense, he left his empire in turmoil. Antiochus already suffered the losses we know of in the 4th Syrian War, the Battle of Rapha. Then read that verse again. He did what?
Verse 14. And in those times there shall many. This one of the previous one.
What was that? Verse 13.
Verse 13.
Yeah.
For the king of the north shall return.
In other words, he came back, and that's why we had verse 13, as you can see. He came back in the series or the war which was known as the 5th Syrian War. Like I said, this was a series of 6 wars. The 5th Syrian War. He came back. Go ahead.
Verse 13. For the king of the north shall return, and shall set forth a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come.
Now the reason he said greater than the former, I'm going to show you what he did. This guy, Antiochus the Great, came back, and at this point, he had he literally came back with he came back with the king of Macedon. Antiochus III the Great united with Philip. It was Philip the Fifth of Macedonia, and they both rolled on Ptolemy, and they tore his ass up. All right. And then when you go back into the history, a lot of these people they were all intermarrying. The Bible's not going to tell you that much because it's not going into what's taking place. Its allies is keeping it for the most part between the Seleucid dynasty and the Ptolemaic dynasty, or the Seleucid Empire and the Ptolemaic Empire. But when it says he's going to return with a host greater than the former, it's talking about his own army plus the armies of Macedonia under King Philip V. Go ahead, brother.
And shall certainly come after certain years with a great army and with much riches.
Go ahead.
Verse 14. And in those times there shall many stand up against the king of the south.
Go ahead. When it says stand up against the king of the south, it's talking about literally all of his allies. Many stood up against him. In other words, the Seleucid Empire, the Macedonian Empire. Go ahead.
Also the robbers of that people shall exalt themselves to establish division.
Go ahead.
But they shall fall. Verse 15. So the king of the north shall come and cast up a mount and take the most fed cities.
In other words, the king of the north came, then he had the advantage. When it says the most fed cities, literally, they came back and took all of what's known as Soul Syria. Soul Syria, like I said, was that lane that led from Syria all the way down into Egypt. So they came, although the picture during this era doesn't depict it, for a while all of this, and including Caria and Cilicia, was all yellow, so to speak. In other words, at this point that the Bible is describing and prophesying, it is prophesying about the era in which within this development, the Seleucid Empire would have the upper hand. Continue, brother.
Verse 15. So the king of the north shall come and cast up a mount and take the most fed cities.
Go ahead.
And the arms of the south shall not withstand.
No, when it said the arms of the south, the southern empire couldn't handle it. The Ptolemaic empire couldn't handle it. And as a matter of fact, it was in 200 BC when this is what it was. This took place between 202 and 195 BC. And this particular Ptolemy, it was Ptolemy Epiphanes. Let's go to Ptolemy Epiphanes, they defeated him at the Jordan River, at the head of the Jordan River. Go ahead.
Verse 16. But he that cometh against him shall do according to his own will.
In other words, the northern empire, this time coming against the southern empire, had his way. This was, like I said, the 5th Syrian war. Go ahead.
Verse 16 again. But he that cometh against him shall do according to his own will.
Now let me say this. The reason we haven't been going to the Josephus yet, because this part in the Josephus, this is all regular history. You got to study up on it. Once it gets down to where, for instance, let me tell you what. Once it gets down to the scriptures, or I should say, King Antiochus Epiphanes, remember he was the Greek, the Seleucid general, the Seleucid line, the Seleucid king that began to try to Hellenize Israel. So the Bible has Daniel 11 might have more to say about it. But when you read the history, matter of fact, we don't have to read that. The previous successors of the Seleucids, they wasn't bothering Israel. They allowed Israel to keep their laws. They extended, while keeping their laws, they exempted Israel from certain tribute, and they allowed them to, they afforded or extended them the benefits that came with being Greek citizens. So we haven't gone to the Josephus or the Apocalyptic even, because between Ptolemy II all the way down to Ptolemy V and Antiochus II all the way down to Seleucus the IV, who we haven't gotten to yet, they were all at peace with Israel. They were all at peace with Israel. It wasn't until what Daniel 7 referred to as that horn, that a wicked root that started putting hell on Israel. So we're going to start going more into the other books, and it's going to be quite extensive. But what I'm dropping on you guys, this is why I'm giving you names and dates, because it's history that you got to go read. And you can go and verify this for yourself. You know what you can do? You don't even have to get big. It'd be good to get books. Book on the Greek Empire, just like we got that book called Atlas of the Roman World. You can get Atlas of the Greek World, and it'll give you can get books. Go in and type in Diadochi, Diaochi, and you can get extensive information on that. You go in and you type in the Syrian Wars, and it'll give you a concise but accurate history. What I don't trust a lot about what's that source on the internet? Wikipedia is sometimes it's a lot of misinformation. But what you can do is you can cross-reference what you read in the source of Wikipedia with its sources that it lists. Like at the end of every bit of history, it gives you books, it gives you authors, it gives you titles, and then you can go and cross-reference those. But you got to really be into, I hate to take the camera upstairs and show them my library, but you really got to be into the books to be able to verify these sources. And then, like I said, this is something I've been doing for 22 years now, since 1988. So here it is, 2010. So most of the stuff I got off the top of my head is because, we've been on the streets all our life, or at least close to half of my life, just drilling people on it. So it comes naturally, but it still shouldn't be that you accept simply what you're hearing on this tape. What you should be doing is listening to the names, writing them down, pausing the tape, writing down, especially like when we get to the map, when we get to the board, we got the, what do we call that?
Oh, the family trees.
Yeah, the family trees. The family trees, you write the names down, you cross-reference the years that I gave you. You go and you do a research on specifically Antiochus the Great, Antiochus Epiphanes, the Seleucid line. And you're going to see it's going to be quite accurate. So what verse do we leave off on?
Verse 16 now. But he that comes against him shall do according to his own will.
So it was picking up with the fact that the north or the Seleucid line, this king who was Antiochus the Great, he would actually have the upper hand now. Go ahead. And the reason he had the upper hand, literally, is because Hannibal was his general. Hannibal was his cat's general, man. Go ahead.
And none shall stand before him.
And that's why it said none shall stand before him. Go ahead.
And he shall stand in the glorious land.
When it said the glorious land, literally, he actually went on and extended his kingdom.